Hi. I don't know what that was. If there's one thing about me, it's that I can be a little devil's advocate. And that doesn't mean that I like the devil. However, I do enjoy the concept of challenging ideas. And while that can be a great way to encourage critical thinking, it can be a great way to sharpen your mind, but it can also cause you anguish and possibly to lose all your friends. It has its drawbacks. So is there a right way to do this, or is it just wrong to always challenge everything? Obviously, there's a balance, and we're going to get into a little bit of that. I want to go over who are the type of people that would have this personality type to want to challenge everything, who are some people in history who have done this and done this well or not, and also the pros and the cons of this method of communication. Is there a right time? Is there a right place? Yes, yes, and yes. So let's get into it. I have gotten into debates and arguments that I'd care to not relive. But honestly, it's more meant to be a fun, engaging communication and to really challenge not only other people's beliefs to a more holistic way of thinking, but also my own. That's a big reason why I personally do it. And it's important to me as a person when I'm looking into the things that I want to consider. I like to look at the whole broad scope of the situation, lots of different perspectives, especially if I'm trying to form an opinion on it and take a stance or a belief on something or have an opinion about anything. And it can be something fun or it can be something more serious. But yeah, it's just something that the way that my brain works. And not everybody likes that. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people just want to take things at face value. Some people are just looking for a conversation. And some people just want to have a fun opinion without it being challenged. So you have to know the difference. Let's talk about some people that do like this way of thinking and what types of personalities generally fall into this mentality. I don't know if you know much about the Myers-Briggs personality types, but usually those types are the like INTJs or the INTPs. A lot of the INTs, which is I think introverted, they could be extroverted too. I think it's the ENTs and the INTs. But it's basically if you have intuitive thinking and perceiving within your personality type, typically have this sort of thinking style. So they're usually introverted, intuitive thinking, and perceiving. And so they might challenge ideas in a more laid back way and more of a hands-on, like I'll show you this perspective way. And then the ESTP, they're the ones that like love provoking and love just challenging things to get reactions and just have a little bit of fun. I think that's bordering on to like sociopathic behavior maybe. So I don't know if that's the best way to go, but you do you. Another thing to mention is this is not anything new. This has been happening throughout history, and one of the most famous devil advocates in history is Socrates, and he created the Socratic method, and that was basically just asking annoying questions until you break someone's brain. You just keep asking questions to get them to really critically think everything that they're saying or any topic that they're interested in, rather than just forming an opinion based on limited ideas or limited information. And he just famously would ask questions to help people clarify their thoughts, to listen to another person's response, and to reflect back on their own argument. He would also ask them to provide evidence, and he would ask other clarifying questions like, why do you say that? What do you mean by that? Or how does this relate to our discussion? What do you think about the main issues surrounding this? Or could you expand on that a little bit more? He did it, I feel like, in a very respectful and curious way. And I feel like it was probably a better way to go about it than just like challenging or arguing. So in that respect, it was nice. However, the downside is he annoyed Athens so much, he was killed for it. Whoops. So yeah, it didn't turn out well for him. Now, he was a little bit ahead of his time, and he was creating havoc in his community. He was trying to influence the young and turn them against the elders, and he was challenging long-standing beliefs that people just weren't ready to change their minds on yet. So he was kind of a figure that was creating problems within the community. So they had to get rid of him. And that can be the case when you have somebody who's trying to challenge something that you believe in. You're immediately like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, that's typically what people's reactions are if you're not going about it in a very delicate way or you're overdoing it. So yeah, like people get very defensive when you start challenging them. And again, like when I do it, I don't feel like I'm doing it in a way to, say anything about that person or about the way that they think or saying that they're wrong. I'm just looking for open-mindedness. I'm looking for communication. I'm looking for a discussion. I'm looking for, all the things I mentioned, but I just don't think that it's perceived the right way sometimes. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like having those kinds of discussions. They don't like to have those critical thinking. They just want to have they're not looking for anything too crazy. They're just looking to vent their ideas or explain themselves or to be heard or to have a belief and have it supported and to feel loved and accepted. And when you start questioning any of that, they take it very personally, and it's very understandable. So it's important to really be delicate in how you approach it. But I would say it's still extremely valuable and important, especially for some things. Not everything has to be challenged. Some things can just be listened to and supported. And of course, I'm just saying, if it's a situation where you feel like, oh, this could be a good opportunity to challenge a little bit and to have like a little bit of a more open-minded conversation. And it can be about something so dumb, okay? It doesn't have to be deep stuff. I'm just saying something like, I think that pouring my milk in before pouring my cereal in is the best way to eat cereal, and nobody can change my mind. And then I might say, well, why is that? Why do you like putting your milk in before your cereal? Why don't you put your cereal in your bowl and then pour your milk in like a normal person? Well, tell me more about that. So it also does lead to opening up their ability to communicate what they love and why they do something. And you can really build them up first and then come at it from a different angle and say, okay, I can kind of see why you would like to do that so your cereal doesn't get soggy, or, you can really appreciate every single bite because you're taking a little bit and taking a bite rather than just going through a bowl of cereal, or whatever the reasons are. I don't really know because I don't do that. But then you can come at it and say, yeah, I can really see that. Have you ever thought of it this way? Like, do you understand why somebody else might think of it a different way? And if they're like, no, eating cereal this way is the only way, then to maybe like back off a little bit. However, if you're really like me and you, depending on the person, obviously, if it's somebody you're really close to, and you think, I don't like that you have such a strong opinion about this. I want to open up your mind a little bit and at least get you to acknowledge the other side. Acknowledge what that other person is feeling and liking as well. That's validating for me if I can get somebody to see the other side and say, oh, yeah, I can understand, because I can do that. I can open up my perspective to see why somebody might pour their milk in before putting their cereal in, but I can also see why somebody might not, and why somebody likes to have the milk soak into the cereal a little bit more to get just a little bit of extra flavor and the perfect texture to eat their cereal. Like both sides have their pros and their cons, and that's why I like to do pros and cons, because I feel like there's pros and cons to everything, and you can't just have such a strong opinion about one thing. There is always another side to the story. Don't judge a book by its cover. So let's go through some pros of being a devil's advocate, and then we'll do the cons, because there's definitely cons. So obviously it encourages critical thinking. It forces people to analyze their point of view and back it up with logic or experience or things like that, or explain kind of why they believe what they believe. It can help refine arguments by refining ideas and identifying weaknesses. Again, not a main reason why I do it. Stimulates deeper conversation. I think this is where my mentality lies the most. It leads to more engaging and thought-provoking conversations. And that's really what I like. It also reduces groupthink. And I also like this aspect as well, because it irks me so much when someone just spouts something that they've learned just based off of hearsay or a generalized group mentality. And this can happen like in school or on social media or just within your family or anything like that. Like something that you just learned because most of the people around you believe that thing or have said that thing, or something that you've heard from like your friends, even about a person, I remember one time I was in school and somebody would always say these negative things about this guy and just like made him out to be such a villain, and I never listened to them. It is good to listen to some people, like in some situations, but I do feel like you need your own fresh perspective of it and to have like a certain level of experience in that before you can make your own opinion up about that, because something may have happened in the past that created that opinion for one or two of those people, and then it spread, and now everybody believes that thing, and it could be years later, and that person's just hanging on to this like one negative thing that happened when they were younger. And I remember just like learning about this person and spending more time around this person, and I took the initiative to actually like engage with them and learn about them and let them open up and talk to them. And they were an actually really nice, decent person that was just going through a lot and struggling, and nobody really, he just got pigeonholed as this negative person and this bad person. And it wasn't the case. It just wasn't true. And I think that's just something that needs to be considered, is just groupthink is out for this year. Okay. It can also build debate and persuasion skills. This, again, is not an area that I focus on, or not a reason why I do it. I'm terrible at debating. I'm terrible at persuasion skills. Like, you ask me to influence somebody and it won't happen. I'm just not good at that. I don't know why. I feel like I probably should be better because of the way that I think, but I guess because I'm not trying to persuade somebody to my side, I'm more just trying to open up the flower to help them bloom a little bit and expose themselves to the rest of the world and just rather than just being closed and only seeing within the confines of their little, flower bud. I'm going with analogy there, but I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to get them to believe what I believe, or because I feel like that isn't great either. Like, I'm not trying to persuade somebody to my side. I just want them to be able to kind of open up and see all the sides, so that when they do form an opinion, I know that their opinion is solidified in their full experience and knowledge and open-mindedness. You know what I mean? So, but anyways, it can help if you are in a debating type of situation. It can help with that type of communication, but I don't like that. It's like, it does come, it's like more of the argumentative side where, no, I'm not into that. I don't want to argue. I'm drama free. Okay. I have to be drama free. It can be entertaining. And this is the type of people that like to poke fun or just like stirs things up. And that's usually like the trolls of the internet, who don't really believe what they're saying. They're just poking at things to get reactions. And I don't know if that's a pro. I feel like that would be a negative, but being the antagonist in a situation can provide a level of fun engagement. And if you're doing it in a silly, fun, like, I don't know, like just pokey way with your friends and people that you know are, and they know that you're just joking around and you're just trying to create something, that could be fun. But don't go down the troll route, okay? Let's not do that. It's also like a free brain gym for your brain. So I work on lots of brain gym activities with kids in my therapy courses, and I work on a lot of critical thinking with them, a lot of using both sides of your brain, both physically, like through different physical aspects, and also mental challenges. And I think it is super important, and critically thinking is the best brain gym for your brain, because you're having to think about all the different sides, and you can't just think one way. You have to be able to think outside the box, and it really opens up your world, and it opens up possibilities, and it opens up just a lot of different creative ideas as well, you know? So it's really good at just being able to be more flexible in your thinking, and also, I think, being able to cope better with things when things don't go well, because you've already considered lots of different things. So when something that you stringently believe in or think is going to happen, or you have this like one path that you're on, and then that path gets derailed, you could really suffer, you know? You could really go down this crazy path of just destruction, because you're like, well, that thing that I thought or believed in is now doesn't exist. And so what now? So yeah, I think that having that way of thinking, of just constantly thinking about the other side, or thinking about other perspectives, or, you know, the opposite of what you believe in, or the opposite of what you're thinking, it really opens up your brain to having more flexibility in a lot of different areas. And then the last one is, it also keeps people on their toes. They never really know who you are, or what you think, or what you're going to believe. And so they become more curious about you and what you're thinking. And I found that to be pretty true in my case, because I oftentimes might come off not really having a stance on something, because I'm constantly opening up my mind to like everything. So even though I do have a lot of solidified beliefs and values and opinions on things, I feel like I came to those because of my open-mindedness and just thinking about all the different, you know, aspects of it. But I still like to challenge them. I still like to continually question it, because once I come to an opinion, it doesn't mean that that's my opinion forever. Like, it's never going to mold or adapt or take on a slightly different perspective, obviously. So while it is true that you never really know which side I'm on, I guess, and there might be some level of truth to that, because I'm usually somewhere in the middle, but a lot of times I have picked a side, but I'm not just like 100% stuck there forever, I guess. So I'm always open, and I'm always at least willing to consider. And at the end of the day, I do have my opinions and my beliefs on things, but I'm just not frozen there forever. I'm not frozen in time with that opinion, I guess. on the flip side, that can become a negative if you always come off aloof and like you don't really have a full belief in something, because a lot of people gravitate towards people who have very polarizing beliefs or very strong opinions about something and take a huge, like 100% stance on one thing, and they're unwavering. And I understand that. I understand wanting, there's something a little bit comforting and knowing that you're trusting somebody or you're leaning on somebody that has that level of commitment to one belief or one idea or expertise in a way of just like that thing, because that's all they think about and care about and settled on. So obviously those types of people are trying to persuade other people to come to them because they have such a strong opinion about it, and so they're able to say everything that supports that side, that opinion, and it will resonate with a lot of people that, you know, might think that and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, okay, I'm gonna go that, and you look like you really know what you believe and you really stand for something, and I respect that and I totally understand that. I do. I guess my counter argument to that is just that it's easy to be persuaded to something when the person talking fully believes that thing and is only giving you one side, and they're like, yes, this product is amazing, it's got all these benefits, it's beautiful, it helps you do this, it helps this, and it's like, it just makes you feel like it's 100% good without ever thinking about, oh, it actually could be good and bad, because there are always pros and cons to things. And you know, if you don't want to think about the cons, if you're just totally happy thinking about, you know, the sides that are good, then that's fine. Let you do you. I'm just trying to bring about a little bit of open-mindedness. So that's a con. Like, just, you know, if you don't have a full strong stance on something, people aren't normally going to consider you an expert or somebody that they can really fully rely on or believe or trust when you're, I don't know, it does sort of eliminate that trust factor. I feel like is when, I don't know, there's something about people that are experts, even if it's an opinion on something and they take a stance on something, that people gravitate towards, because I think it's just they feel like that person is way more knowledgeable in that area because they've committed to it. So it must be good. It must be perfect. It must be worthwhile if somebody has committed that much to believing in it. And so they're more willing to invest and believe in that person and that opinion, because the person touting that opinion is like saying, this is a really good opinion, you guys. And that makes sense. Like, I totally get that. So that could be a con of having like the devil's advocate thinking versus the I'm going to believe in this no matter what thinking. It also might seem disingenuous, like if you are constantly questioning everything and picking apart things and being annoying, then you just come across as somebody that is like, you don't really believe what you're saying. You're just trying to create a situation. You're just trying to be difficult. And, you know, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be somebody that's coming across like just trying to start something, you know? And you also don't want to come across like you don't actually have a belief system, that you don't believe what you're actually arguing. Because I have been guilty of this part, is like I said before, sometimes I will believe and agree with the person who's talking about something, and it could be a subject that I agree with, but I might challenge that belief or that opinion, and by just saying, let's open this up to seeing like what other perspectives are. But there is definitely a right way and a wrong way to word that and to approach it. Because if you approach it in a critical way, like, yeah, but I know you think that, but what about this? Then it comes off like you don't believe what they believe, or you don't agree, even though you do. It can come off like you don't actually have a belief, like you don't actually agree with them, that you don't actually have a side, and you're just trying to figure things out all the time. Like, you're always just so confused, and you're always so flippant and you're always ready to switch sides, and like that's not what you're trying to accomplish here. You're not trying to come across like you have no sense of self and you have no sense of understanding about the world or about, it's the complete opposite of what you're trying to actually do. So you do want to make sure that you're very clear on what you do actually believe and what you do think, but that you're willing to open up your thoughts to other perspectives and at least critically think the situation a little bit, maybe just to create a conversation. Like I said, communication is key in this situation. So rather than coming across as aloof and unbelieving and just like not really having any ideas of what's going on, make sure that you don't come across that way, because that can be like it can seem disingenuous. It can also be really annoying. Being a devil's advocate can be annoying, especially if you do it wrong. If you do it in a very annoying way where you're constantly challenging everything and you're constantly just picking and you're digging at somebody and you're always challenging every single thing that they think. And I have definitely been guilty of this. It's just not a good thing to do when somebody is really passionate about something and then you start questioning it. It's happened to me before, and I've learned over time the right times to do it and the wrong times to do it. So that's something that has to be figured out. Don't be annoying, don't be a troll, and don't overuse it, because that's kind of the thing is, yes, it's good to critically think, but not always in the heat of a moment, or not always when somebody is really passionate about something and really trying to get a point across. And then it can turn into an argument, and then it can turn into just like, why do you always have to challenge everything I say? Why do you always have to disagree with everything I say? And it's not at all meant to be a disagreement or a challenge. It's more just meant to be like, yeah, I can see you're really upset about this, but maybe you wouldn't be so upset about it if you thought about it this way. It's more coming from a place of love than it is coming from a place of criticism, but it doesn't always come off that way. And so it can be super annoying, and you'll just have to learn the right ways and the right times to approach that thinking. I definitely have had to learn that. So it can also really derail conversations sometimes. Like, we're in a flow, things are going well, and then you start challenging something and suddenly the conversation just goes haywire, and suddenly you're just like all over the place, and everyone's very confused. What just happened? Where are we? What are we talking about? So yeah, that can be a negative as well. I don't really have I go on tangents and stuff and I get sidetracked, I guess, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess I could do that. It also, like I said, might offend others, and that kind of comes across with like just saying it in a way that could be very offensive. You don't want to be offensive. You don't want to create a situation. You're not trying to demean another person or argue with another person or put down another person or say that their opinion is wrong. It's not about them being right or wrong. It's about them being open-minded. And if they're not open-minded and that comes off as being something that you feel is wrong, that's not the time and place to change them as a person. I mean, that's something that they're going to have to do over time on their own. It's not your job. That's not the point of the discussion. The discussion is more just to create a deeper, interesting conversation and create, just a liberation of ideas among other people, just to like have interesting, deep conversation, not to change somebody's life, not to change somebody's opinion, not necessarily to create a whole different personality. Like, you're not changing people. And that's when it can get heated. That's when it can get very dark. And that's not the point of being a devil's advocate, in my opinion. That's not how I approach it anyways. Yeah, so I think that would be maybe not the best way to go about it. But you can debate me if you want. It also can be mentally exhausting if you're constantly debating other people and creating situations and arguments. So that's not what we're going for. So that is a negative side of it. If you go at it from a negative point of view, and you're constantly like challenging and creating critical thinking, I mean, your brain, it's sensitive, it's got a lot to do on a day-to-day basis, and maybe it doesn't want to be critically thinking right now. So maybe not every situation you have to do that with. Just once in a while, create some like critical thinking, especially if it's a situation or a conversation that provides that opportunity. But yeah, if you're doing it all the time, it can definitely create mental exhaustion and not be worth it. Not for you, not for anybody. So hold back as much as you can. It also is the ultimate eye roll generator, especially if you're the type of person that is always saying, well, actually, that's not the type of critical thinking and devil's advocate we're talking about here. We're not trying to correct people, okay? We're not trying to change their opinion. We're trying to open them up to at least consider other sides. It's not about changing people. It's not about saying you're wrong. None of that, okay? No, just putting people down for what they believe or what they think, because that can lead to a lot of misinformation too. Like if you just start spouting your own opinions, like, well, actually, and then again, it just comes from you, and then I don't know, it's not good. It's not good. So don't be the eye roll generator, okay? Don't be that person that's like, well, actually, this is the way it should be, or this is the way it really is. You're going to end up becoming that person. You don't want to be that person who argues everything and who just stops getting invited to game night, okay? We don't want that. You also could have the risk of developing a villain arc, okay? We don't want that either. We're not looking to create a villain arc. You don't want to spark a conversation taking a stance from an opposite point of view, and now everybody thinks that you believe that thing because you've been arguing it this whole time. We're not trying to argue the other side. We're just trying to open up the other side for all of us collectively to think about and discuss, right? So you don't want to become the villain in the situation, because a lot of times people have very strong beliefs, and then if you're over here saying, I believe this, you're now the villain, okay? They don't want you to come to game night. They don't want you coming around, and because most of the time those types of people don't actually believe what they're arguing. They're just trying to create a situation, and that's not what we want. We're not trying to do a false argument. We're trying to just broaden people's minds. All right. There's always that potential for emotional landmines. Never go into a devil's advocate mindset, even if you're just trying to develop critical thinking and open up people's minds. Never do it in an emotional situation, right? We're not stepping on emotional landmines, creating issues, creating problems, creating tears, creating full-blown emotional outbursts. We're not here for that, okay? Drama-free. We want drama-free intellectual conversations. Genuinely deep, interesting, thought-provoking, considerate conversation. That's it. We don't want the emotional stuff. I mean, if a tear sheds out of happiness, that's one thing. And you never want somebody to get to a point where they're frustrated and huffed and like fuming, and then you say, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Oh my gosh, if you ever say that, don't. That's borderline, okay? So, in my opinion, I think that being a devil's advocate can be valuable if it's done the right way. But it is a very nuanced skill that has to be learned over time, I think, or at least practiced in a way with safe people before you start opening it up to the masses. I wouldn't maybe open it up to the masses, maybe just keep it within your friend groups and your family, or just do whatever you want. But what do you think? Do you think being a devil's advocate is just strictly either a genius move or annoying? Or is there something in the middle? I think there's a middle ground. It has to be worked on and perfected in a way, but always coming from a place of kindness, of interest and curiosity and love, because otherwise it can really inch over to that annoying and slightly cynical, criminal way. And we don't want that. We don't want negativity. We're looking for positivity in the most possible way. So are you a devil's advocate? Are you going to be a devil's advocate? Do you like critical thinking? Tell me what you think. You guys can also debate it in the comments. Talk about it yourself. Just don't get too heated. And open each other's minds. And I will see you next time. Bye. Oh my God, it's so long. This video is getting so long.